I'm pleased to welcome you to the first session of the course on developing a bonus system. Today, in our first session, we'll discuss what a bonus system is and what problems it solves. We'll also look at research on the topic of bonuses. Because, as in any other field, we need to rely on global best practices and understand what's happening in the industry right now. Why does anyone in a company need to deal with a bonus system? The fact is, those who know how to develop effective bonus systems act as business partners in the company and are much more valued in the job market, because every company needs a bonus system that works, primarily because it's always about money. A bonus system involves paying money to employees. You'll agree it would be a shame if money is spent with no results to show for it. That's why bonus system specialists are truly highly valued. This is how our course website looks. We have bonuses at the end, which is very clear. In case we haven't met, my name is Mike Pritula, and I've worked most extensively on bonus systems here. I've done most of my work developing them. It was the STB TV channel within the Star Media structure. I've worked on many systems, either transforming existing ones, developing new ones, or improving something. We had nearly 25 different types of systems there, and indeed we were constantly improving their effectiveness. This is my most extensive experience, although I also participated in large projects related to bonus systems at Wargaming. And then in smaller companies, it was a bit different. In our work, we rely on global best practices. Today, we'll look at research from Willis Towers Watson. It's very interesting, and at the end of today's session, we'll see how modern companies are using bonus systems now. I'd be grateful if you could write about yourself, your city, position, and company. This way, we'll get to know each other. Those watching on Facebook, please write there too, so that we can learn more about each other. Our regular attendee. Good evening, Kazakhstan and Commerce HR. All right, yes, good evening. So who else will write? In general, don't be shy. As soon as you write, I'll read it out. While I move on, let me remind you that students receive diplomas for all successfully completed homework assignments, and a diploma is a mark of quality for you. The course consists of 6 sessions. Today, we're talking in general about what a bonus system is. In the second session, we'll discuss how to lay the foundation, that is, how to describe what the bonus system will be based on and how it will work. Then we'll talk about how to develop metrics to tie the bonus system to. In the fourth session, we'll learn how to choose the most appropriate system because they come in different types. In the fifth session, we'll learn how to describe all of this, and in the sixth, how to launch, budget, analyze, and manage it. Yes, I'm reading who's online with us. Human Resources Odessa Delta Wilmar Ukraine, Moscow Electronic Commerce. Moscow CNB Information Technology. Cool. It seems no one else is written here. Okay. Today's session is dedicated to questions such as the role of bonuses in the structure of total compensation, types of bonuses, but there are many. We'll briefly familiarize ourselves with the main types today. Next, I'll explain the algorithm of how to properly develop a bonus system, and then we'll look at global practices, where we'll examine modern, very recent research. So let's start with why we need bonuses in the first place. Why are they needed at all? And here I suggest you start. Please write in the chat, why are bonuses needed? Why do we need to pay something besides salary? After all, salaries are paid too. How do you understand this for yourself? How would you explain to someone what role bonuses play? Please write in the chat. What problems do bonuses and the bonus system solve? What functions do they perform? What problems can they eliminate? Well, I don't know. In general, I'd really like to hear and learn any thoughts you have on this. Carrot? Oh, Maria, that's probably the most concise and very meaningful answer. Yes, to serve as a carrot, but I want to add that the bonus system can serve another role as well, like the carrot and the stick too. So motivation for exceptional performance. Thank you, Eugene. Are there any other opinions on why this is necessary or not? If anyone has any, please write them down. Don't be shy. It will be interesting to know how you feel about this. While you're writing, I want to show you this poster as an example. If you've watched westerns or cartoons that depict those old American times, then you've seen those posters that say reward and state that whoever catches the criminal gets a reward. And there's a photo of the criminal, what they're wanted for, who to contact, and so on. The amounts are very large. Today, of course, it's hundreds or thousands of times more than $5,000 because there's been a lot of inflation. And indeed, the reward system was used to motivate people to do extraordinary things. So Eugene also writes about retention. Employee retention through incentives ranging from annual bonuses to LTI. Yes. Today we'll talk about these abbreviations. Everyone has it and we need it too, and this as well. Absolutely correct. So the main purpose of the bonus system, the reason why it was developed, why it came into being, is indeed to reward exceptional performance. But many companies misuse the bonus system. They reduce their risks this way. That is, they are, for example, looking for a person they need for this or that position. For instance, let's say they're looking for an HR director. They want to find an HR director. They see that a really great director of the kind they want costs $5,000, but they're afraid to pay that money. They say, we'll pay you 3 and we'll top up the other 2 with bonuses, premiums, whatever. And in this way, the company isn't directing the person towards exceptional results. It's just hedging its bets, thinking how? We'll pay the additional 2 only if we're very satisfied. And if we're not satisfied, we'll fire them and they'll leave with their 3. So it's an insurance system. It's a bit of a twisted approach. The system stops working as it should. It solves a different problem, but unfortunately, these are the realities. And indeed, as Eugene wrote, for many it's just, well, someone else has it, so we did it too. Not even trying to do it well. That's also a bad approach. Let's move on. Now let's think about what types of variable compensation, The course is called bonuses, although we'll be talking about different types, and these types have their own names. We've already mentioned LTI. These are indeed long-term incentives, which can be translated as long-term bonus systems. What other names do you know? I've generalized this as variable compensation. That is everything that can be provided to an employee on top of their salary. So there's AIP or IP? Okay, good. Well, to be honest, STI, LTI are also generalizations because LTI can come in different forms just like STI. So let's look even deeper into what subtypes of bonus systems there might be. For example, at the very least, some call it a premium, some call it a bonus. There are other different methods too. Salespeople have their own thing. Creative people might have their own. So there are, for example, one-time and regular bonuses. Yes, there is such a distinction. In general, there are many subtypes. All right. Thank you for writing. Indeed, one of the common classifications and divisions by direction you see is exactly the same. These are STI, AIP, and LTI. STI stands for short-term incentives. These are short-term types of bonuses. But again, this is somewhat generalized. We see they come in different forms. For example, there can be fees or there can be commissions or percentages. These are all essentially STI. Then there are annual incentives. These are yearly bonuses. This is what's paid for the year. And then there's LTI. These are long-term plans, which can also come in various forms. We'll see today. This is a universal international classification, meaning globally, everything is divided into 3 categories: STI, AIP, and LTI. There you go. Remember this, and you'll be using this terminology from now on. Now let's talk about the types. So there's a one-time incentive indeed, as Eugene wrote. It's something the employee usually doesn't expect. In other words, it's something that wasn't mentioned in advance. They didn't say, if you do this, you'll get that. So it's usually for something, for some kind of achievement. An employee did something extraordinary, something unusual. The manager decided to reward them. Or maybe the manager asked an employee to go above and beyond, like working on weekends. They developed a sense of gratitude or maybe even guilt, and they somehow submitted a request for the company to pay a reward. It's a one-time thing. There's no system to it. It's a bit spontaneous. It's more like recognition for one-off achievements. Then there are regular but short-term incentives and regular long-term ones. Next, in terms of timing, there's project-based motivation. Yes, we're getting to that now. So a one-time bonus can be unscheduled. It can be paid at any time. Then there's a monthly bonus paid monthly. Very few people refer to monthly premiums as bonuses. Although a bonus and a premium are essentially the same thing, it's just nuances in terminology. In English, it's generally called an incentive. Well, that's how it is in Russian, although in English, they sometimes write bonuses too. Nevertheless, quarterly bonuses are paid quarterly. Companies practice this. There's also a piece rate bonus system where an employee is offered to do something. It's not necessarily a project. It could be some task. It could be temporarily taking on a role. Let's say someone went on maternity leave, so you'll take on these responsibilities and we'll pay you something extra. Or let's say you develop a report. So it's like a project, but a project implies something more formal, a project approach, a project team, specific projects, project results, but sometimes it can all be a bit more informal. Next, of course, there's often a project bonus for up to a year. Although if the projects are very large, it can actually be longer. It's also customary to pay for big projects. Furthermore, an annual bonus can also be part of a long-term program lasting more than a year. You see that the terms vary, how to understand what term is needed, how often. It's believed that it's best when the payout period is equal to the time it takes for the result to appear. In other words, the faster we pay the bonus for a result we can evaluate, the greater the effect of that bonus will be. But we'll talk about the effect a little later, although, again, quite often the payment period depends not on when the employee showed results, but on when the company and manager are ready to evaluate and ready to pay. That is, for example, the financial cycle. There are companies that earn a portion of their annual revenue, 30%, 40, or even 50% in December, retail companies, and they're more inclined to pay annual bonuses because then they have the funding for these annual bonuses. There are companies that tie the payment of annual bonuses, or the bonus system in general, to financial results and profits. And essentially they finance these expenses from profits, so that's why they have annual bonuses and premiums. So ideally, something should be paid out as soon as possible after the result appears, but in reality, it can be paid out when it's convenient for the company. Let's move on. Basis of payment? For bonuses, premiums, and any other types of variable compensation to work in a company, it's important to record results, because there is, of course, an approach where the manager decides who gets how much. This is a very poor approach, very detrimental. It's called managerial discretion. When executives say, how much do you want to pay in bonuses? Or even worse, executives say, here's $10,000 distributed as bonuses, and the manager starts distributing. A good manager is simply confused. Damn, how am I supposed to distribute this? A bad manager. I'll give this one some, he's good, didn't run out for cigarettes. This one snitched on me to my boss, I won't give him anything. That means he's quitting? I'll give this one some, he'll give me a part of it back. Well, in short, all of this is bad. That is, most often the absence of any formulas and calculations is bad practice. And for the calculation formulas to work, the company needs to record results. These can be regular monthly results that are recorded, or they can be annual. For example, a performance review conducted at the end of the year, where a rating is given and then a bonus or award is calculated. Therefore, in general, having a record of results is an important thing. In one of our sessions, we'll discuss this. We have 2 sessions: preparing the foundation and developing a system of indicators. This is essentially preparing the basis on which bonuses and awards can be paid. Let's move on. The role of bonuses in the structure of total compensation. It's important to understand that the topic of bonuses is narrower in relation to a somewhat broader topic. That is, it's not independent, but part of something bigger. This bigger thing used to be called compensation and benefits. Now it's called total rewards or total compensation, according to the latest total rewards model from the World at Work organization. They updated it last April. There are 5 components in total. Total rewards of what attracts, retains, and motivates employees. Here are the 5 components. Compensation is one of the components, and actually variable compensation lies right here. Within compensation, it's called variable. There's fixed compensation and there's variable. Again, all of this is needed to attract, motivate, and retain employees. Here's another model where all the elements are explained in more detail. Let's move on. Does a company need to deal with bonuses, awards, and so on? Overall, we can say that for employees worldwide, the topic of compensation remains number 1 when it comes to work and job searching. That is, good pay, what people mean by total compensation. This is the very first priority. Yes, perhaps its importance is decreasing, but nevertheless, it's still the most powerful incentive for a person to decide to work for one company or another. Therefore, in terms of factors for attracting people and factors for choosing an employer globally, financial compensation, bonuses and awards, along with salary, this is the number 1 factor. Next, if we talk about local studies, for example, in particular studies conducted by the ATA company, here the bonus scheme accounts for 51% of the votes from participants who chose it among other important factors. Only voluntary health insurance ranks higher. Salary isn't mentioned here, but there are many other factors. Nevertheless, people value the bonus scheme. Also, according to the research, 46% of survey participants have this bonus scheme. Well, that's the practice. I don't know exactly which specific companies were included and which weren't. This is the data we have. Next, another study, or rather the same study, but divided by gender. For women, according to the study, the bonus scheme is in 3rd place. For men, it's in 2nd place. That is something to lure men to work with besides a salary, although insurance is also important somewhere in there. Let's move on. Another study by the Haas company, also in the Russian-speaking segment, shows decent monetary compensation in 1st place and bonuses for achieving set goals in 2nd place. In terms of what motivates professionals the most out of tangible things, things you can touch. Therefore, based on all these studies, we can confidently state that the bonus system today remains one of the most powerful factors in attracting, retaining, and motivating employees. That's why this system should be taken very seriously. A good system can help a company, while a bad system at best will simply waste the company's money. In the worst case, it will scare people away, it will demotivate them, and it will lead to resignations. For example, if the money paid seems good but is distributed unfairly, that is, a person thinks they should have earned more but they were paid less. Yes, they were expecting to get more. They might get upset and quit. So the company spends money and people end up quitting. Consequently, you need to know how to do this properly. Now let's look at the types of bonuses that exist. Again, we'll be talking a lot about local practices on one hand, but on the other hand, we'll refer to international standards for such nuanced matters, because we always, as a rule, adopt many international practices in our profession. This applies not only to human resources, but also to marketers. So from an international perspective, bonus types are broadly divided into those that reward individual performance and those that reward group performance. When it comes to rewarding individual performance, there are several aspects to consider. First, there's the concept of merit pay. The thing is, this relates to salary, so it's not exactly about the bonus system, but how salary changes is also a way to reward people. Because if, for example, you tie the percentage of salary revision to meeting performance indicators or achieving goals, then this salary revision percentage also starts to function like a bonus system. In English, it's called merit pay. It's earned pay, fair pay. It can also be seen as a form of incentive. Next, there can be piece rate pay, or what's called fee-based pay. Some companies use this method. When I worked at the STB TV channel, we actively used fee-based payment or split payment because it allowed us to manage people's workloads and didn't require us to control every step or rigidly monitor people doing their jobs. With creative employees, this isn't always easy, but it allowed employees to see for themselves that the more they worked, the more they earned. For example, the more scripts a writer for the Battle of Psychics project wrote, the more money they earned. This was especially important when there was an unfilled screenwriter position at the time, so when a colleague quit, this person took on an increased workload and earned well as a result. Next is sales compensation, usually in the form of bonuses or commissions, more precisely percentages or commissions. Then there are cash bonuses, one-time recognitions of achievements. There can be recognition programs for various categories. We also actively used the Employee of the Month program at the STB TV channel. They produced good results. It was really interesting there for us. You could say that we even actively reformed the work of one department by introducing fee-based pay and programs like Best Story of the Week and Best Story of the Month. People there started working in a completely different way. Then there are standard hourly plans, but these are for people who are paid by the hour, like movers or call center operators. Some other positions in companies and performance bonuses, which are often annual. Also, as we will see later in the research, group bonus systems are very popular worldwide. These can be systems built on principles of improving efficiency in the format of profit sharing, in the format of risk sharing, stock ownership, and distribution of results. Overall, any system, any bonus system, any type of bonus is designed to solve one task, but beyond just attracting, motivating, and retaining employees, it allows you to focus people on the results that the company needs, on the strategy that the company has developed. I would like to make a separate note about companies in Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. In these companies, bonus systems play an additional role. This is my personal observation. This role is that companies are, one way or another, compelled to develop a bonus system. They believe in it. They see that others have it, and employees usually expect it, because it is a common practice. And so, a bonus system often forces a company to start setting goals for employees. Something that many companies struggle with indeed is that many don't set goals for employees. So thanks to the bonus system, many companies start developing a goal-setting system. Thanks to bonuses, we get another very important process. Well, let's try to ask you, who has a formal goal-setting system in their company? Put a plus if you do. If there's nothing like that, then put a minus. That is, when employees are set goals, results are evaluated, goals are recorded, and employees work on them. If you have this, put a plus. If not, put a minus. Let's see how it is for you. Do you have it or not? This is such a supportive role of the bonus system. For us, it acts as a driver for initiating goal setting in the company. Well, here's a minus. And another one has OCR, but no KPIs and no working performance system. I see. OCR can also be linked? Well, in general, you need to look at how to best build all of this for you. What else? What other good function does the bonus system perform? In the West, a bonus system is usually just a system for rewarding people. They have other systems that exist on their own because business is built more systematically. So in our companies, in our regions, the bonus system, besides being a driver for initiating goal setting, it's also a feedback system for employees. So our problematic area of development is that many employees in companies are not given any feedback. That is, there's no basic performance review, no regular meetings, nothing at all. And again, developing a bonus system encourages the company and managers to evaluate employees, give feedback, and explain why they're receiving a particular bonus. Therefore, in terms of the effectiveness of the bonus system, I'll repeat, in Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan, We can count as a plus that a goal-setting system and regular feedback often emerge as well. It's like a derivative because the bonus system requires these systems. Okay, let's move on. Here I have a translation of all these types. We'll have a separate session where we'll study different types of variable compensation in detail. So today I'm speaking about it in general terms, and in the specialized session we'll explore it in more detail. So, if we set aside the additional goals of a bonus system, most often a company introduces a bonus system to encourage people to work efficiently. This is the scheme a typical company envisions when it decides that bonuses are needed. They think like this. Employees who show good performance will receive increased pay. This will motivate them, their efficiency will increase further, they'll earn more again, and the cycle will close. And although money itself doesn't strongly motivate people, especially those in creative professions and positions where people perform non-routine work, this is confirmed by Dan Pink's research. But the bonus system motivates people precisely because it causes additional processes to emerge. People start to be rewarded for having goals. This is also proven by Gallup and Deloitte companies that having clearly written and recorded goals is a very powerful motivator for employees. The bonus system also creates regular feedback. And when the manager writes out a bonus, they say, "Well done, you. Here's a big bonus for you. Well done, great job." Thus, thanks to the bonus system, motivation really starts to work, but not because the person gets money. Because through the bonus system, they finally learn about expectations, get feedback, and see some numbers. They think, if I got a big bonus, I did well. If I got a small one, I didn't do well. Therefore, we can say that it's really the bonus system that gives a person a sense of motivation, not the banknotes or pieces of paper, but the whole system, exactly as I described it, what a company usually rewards. Since a bonus system is a method of rewarding, most often, either one of two things is rewarded or a combination of both. The first is the goals or metrics that a person achieves. What's the difference between goals and metrics? Goals are something long-term that requires a sequence of actions to achieve a new result. A metric is something routine that a person does every day. So for example, when we talk about a recruiter can have goals and can also have metrics. A goal for a recruiter could be to start using sourcing in their work. For example, recruiters don't use sourcing, but they have a goal to start filling 30% of vacancies through sourcing. That's their goal. They might also have a metric for how many vacancies they fill in total. We'll talk more about this later. So there can be different results of a person's work. Those that are just operational, routine, just work, just duties, and those that require some changes. That's the first part. The second part that gets rewarded is the behavior that a person demonstrates, which is evaluated either in relation to company values or competency profiles. In a modern company, they evaluate both the first and the second. For example, goals and metrics are evaluated through performance reviews or KPI systems, and with a 360-degree assessment, for example, a person's behavior is evaluated. Then it's all summarized and some kind of reward is paid out. That's how it can work. Let's move on. How is a bonus system properly developed? Because nowadays you can often come across such requests. Friends, and very often even the name is distorted. Friends, share the motivation system for salespeople. Friends, share the motivation system for operators. And it's assumed that you'll be given some document and you'll immediately implement it in your company, but it doesn't work that way. It's like, I don't know. Friends, share a treatment for women. Treatment for what? Why? What are the similar data? What's the diagnosis? And so on. All of this is ignored, but that's wrong. The same goes for the bonus system. A bonus system can't be simply transferred. It needs to be developed. What's the ideal process that should occur in a company for a bonus system to be developed and implemented? A company must have a strategy, meaning the company must understand where it's heading. Based on the strategy, the company should have goals. But even if there's no strategy, at least there should be annual goals, budget goals. These goals should be cascaded, meaning departments and employees should have their own goals. Next, a job analysis should be conducted. Who does what at work? What leads a person to achieve goals in their work? What actions can be rewarded? During the job analysis, or as a result, certain metrics for bonuses are determined. Then, a bonus system is chosen that best fits the position, how it's implemented, and the metrics. In some places, it's a percentage of sales. In others, it's a fee-based system. In some, it's project-based. In others, it's just a monthly bonus. In some, it's quarterly. In others, it's annually. Somewhere it might be something long-term, and somewhere it might be something not even that simple. For example, a stock options program, which is very interesting. So a system is chosen. When the system is chosen and the metrics are defined, it's all described how it will work. This will be the minimum bonus, starting from a certain level of goal achievement. This will be the maximum, and how the progression within the bonus range from minimum to maximum will occur, which indicators it will be linked to, and how, as well as many other details, such as who is eligible for the bonus system and other related matters. Then the bonus system is launched. So all of this is initiated, communicated, and people are trained so they understand. Budgeting takes place and analysis is conducted as work progresses. Whether it's working or not, whether the goals set in the bonus system are being achieved or not, and management, optimization is needed along with some other things. And of course, there's always ongoing improvement of the bonus system, because even the most ideal bonus system can stop working due to significant changes in external circumstances. This is a typical scheme for developing a bonus system. If your company currently has something in terms of bonuses, you can assess how close you are to this model, or if you're not quite there yet. Now let's look at global practices. So we have research from World at Work. It's the #1 global association for compensation professionals, and is now generally called Total Rewards. They conducted a study of private companies in the US to see who is incentivizing whom and how. I also want to say that if you're interested in studying practices in your country and in your industry, typically you can purchase this information specifically for your country and your industry from a salary market survey provider. For example, companies like Aon, Mercer, Willis Towers Watson, and others. They can provide more detailed information for your industry, but we are going to look at general trends. So what can we say about global trends? Short-term bonuses exist in the world. In the US, 99% of companies have them. Roughly, companies spend 6.5% of operating profits on bonuses, and 86% of companies also have annual bonuses. Moreover, many companies combine different bonus systems. Now let us break it down by category. Short-term bonus systems are not annual ones. Annual bonuses are separate, but rather those that are monthly or quarterly. The minimum that is paid out is 50% of the target bonus. The maximum is most often 150 or 200%. So there is a range. Furthermore, the variable compensation amounts to 80% of the annual salary for the CEO. Then for each subsequent level from C1 to C2 to C3, it is divided by 2. That is, the C1 team will have variable compensation of 40% of annual income. This person's subordinates 20%, and so on down to the bottom, with a minimum of 5%. The number of metrics used ranges from 1 to 3, with the main focus being on profitability. That is, companies often tie bonuses to financial metrics, and goal setting is most often based on the annual budget. Long-term system. 52% of companies have it. Most often they apply to top managers. Although, as we will see in the study, for a small number of companies they may affect other employees. Usually only one LTI, long-term incentive plan, exists at a time, meaning companies do not often combine multiple plans. And most often they are designed to last for 3 years. What are the options? There are either various cash bonuses or options related to securities, stocks, and stock options. Most commonly, types of programs that are used. Here you go. There are short-term bonuses, annual bonus systems, spot bonuses, discretionary bonuses, team bonuses, project bonuses, and profit sharing. These are the most popular ones. The reasons companies add or modify programs are either changing annual goals or aligning programs with market practices, or changes in strategy, company growth, new management, new shareholders, changes in business results, or organizational changes. But in general, a company usually implements or changes a system when there are some business drivers. The percentage of operating profit, on average, we've seen 6.5%. There are companies that spend 13% of their operating profit. Yes, these are the most generous companies. The least generous companies spend 3% of their operating profit. Now pay attention. I'm curious about your thoughts on this. What if the company has no operating profit? What should be done? Let's do this. Put a plus if you think bonuses should still be paid, and a minus if you think bonuses shouldn't be paid under these circumstances. What is operating profit? It's the profit before paying various interest, dividends, and other payments that can reduce profit. Roughly speaking, it's the company's revenue minus its expenses. So Vyacheslav votes minus, but he wrote that it depends on the situation. Who else? What do you think? This is quite a dilemma, by the way. I know many companies face this dilemma, a fork in the road that always has two downsides. On one hand, if there's no profit and you pay a bonus, that is, roughly speaking, if your profit isn't 30%, and out of that 6.4% was paid out in bonuses, then you end up with what, 6? That's very little. 2% of profits are spent on bonus payments. Well, if it's 2 percentage points, that would be the correct way to say it. So if there's no profit, the indicator drops by another 2 percentage points. So for example, if operating profit is minus 15%, after paying bonuses, it becomes minus 17%. It doesn't seem like much. On the other hand, we improved the indicators, or more precisely worsened the indicators. On the third hand, people didn't leave, they stayed. So yes, situationally pay those who are less socially protected but not the managers. That's one option. Overall, it's a matter of choice and risks. I would say it all depends on the culture and the ability to communicate it properly. I believe that a bonus system should tie employee compensation to the overall results of the company. If there is no operating profit, but there are positive motives for acquiring assets, then we can interpolate the size of bonuses from the previous period. I think that asset acquisition doesn't go into operating profit, but into final net profit. Operating profit, of course, could have been calculated idly, but I understand the logic here. I would say it also depends on the culture and communication, how people themselves perceive it, and how, for example, did the employees themselves decide. Okay, who has access to annual plans? It concerns most of the managers. The only thing is what we call blue-collar jobs. They call them blue-collar workers. Often these are those who are paid hourly, and to a lesser extent it applies to them. So it's more applicable to full-time employees. Reasons for implementing annual bonuses: to align employee compensation with short-term goals, to share the company's financial success with employees, to reward employees, to be competitive in the labor market, to focus employees on specific goals, to retain employees, and to provide special recognition for achievements. That's why annual systems are implemented. Yes, annual systems can vary, but they are typically paid out yearly. They can be combined with other systems. That is, they are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Subjective evaluation of the effectiveness of annual systems. Most rated as average, that is, where there is medium effectiveness. So it's not like there's super enthusiasm or just enthusiasm. There are effective and average ratings, and slightly above average at 20%. But there are some who consider it not the most effective. I think the effectiveness depends on the methods. There are companies that pay what Americans call a Santa Claus bonus, and we call it the 13th salary. Now that's definitely ineffective. Well, it might work for employee retention, as employees will wait for the payment. Everything else is not so great. Next, the size of the annual bonus. You can clearly see here, if we take the gray bars, this will be the market median. For the CEO, the annual bonus is 80% of the annual salary. Other top positions, so to speak, 40%. Managers, 15%. Office workers, 10%. Those we call blue-collar workers, 5%. That's how much money is spent on the annual bonus. Next, let's look at the financial metrics for the annual bonus. Profitability, revenue, cash flow, and its growth. Return on investment metrics and other ways of return, equity, and other things. Shareholder return, you could say economic profit and other financial metrics. That is, they're often linked to profitability, and the annual system can often be in the format of profit sharing, when a company allocates a portion of its profits to fund annual bonuses. This, by the way, is fair and a good approach. Next, operational metrics that can be used along with financial ones. These are metrics in the customer area, for example, satisfaction, customer retention, operational efficiency, service quality, safety, satisfaction, employee engagement, and other metrics. But this is rare. We see low percentages. It's not as common, but similar to the others. Next, the evaluation of individual goals. Yes, indeed, 40% of companies evaluate individual goals, and 38% evaluate the employee's overall performance. That is the overall performance rating. Next, let's look at what determines the size of bonuses. Based on the budget, at the discretion of managers, based on year-to-year improvements, according to a certain formula, achievement of milestones, fixed standard, relative to competitors, and so on. So you could say that an annual bonus is often budgeted for. That is, the company determines that we'll have this much profit, and this is how much we'll pay, just based on the facts, like they earned it, looked at it, and decided it's the second most common approach. And then there are other options. The connection of bonuses with different goals, corporate goals, divisional goals, and personal goals. For the chief executive officer, a part is corporate, to a lesser extent divisional and individual goals, and further down the lower the level, the further away from corporate goals and more towards individual goals. Why doesn't it add up to 100% here? There's an explanation, because a company can use several methods simultaneously. That is, it can, for example, in the formula include several coefficients: achievement of company goals, divisional goals, and individual goals. We'll also consider this option in the course as one of the modern and progressive approaches. Is the manager's opinion taken into account? Significantly in 18%, partially in 27%, to a lesser extent in 23%, and not taken into account in 32%. But in that sense, roughly speaking, if it's about annual bonuses, whether the manager has the opportunity to influence the annual bonus, or if there's a formula or some principle. So to some extent, the manager's opinion is still considered. How is it budgeted? So there's a basic financial formula at the corporate level. Next, for example, when it's decided that we'll pay 10% of the profit, the sum of individual target bonuses. When they just took some formula saying this level will get 10%, this one's annual bonus 15%, and summed it up for budgeting. At discretion, the top manager said, let's budget this much. And another option is at the divisional level, some kind of financial formula for how it's budgeted. Next, the method of communication with employees, how all this is conveyed to people. A written plan that is either sent via email or posted on some website. Verbal description by human resources or a manager in individual communication. Regular updates on company progress, annual communication, team or company level meetings, and some don't use anything. That is, it's customary to describe it properly verbally. It's always in addition, but above all, it should be described in writing. Because, here we don't particularly trust anything that's not described or written down. Now, long-term incentive, LTI systems, what are they based on? Cash bonuses 65%, stocks 36%, and various other types 21%. 15% are phantom stocks. So roughly speaking, many companies use long-term cash bonuses and some companies use stocks or options. The main goals of long-term incentives are to retain employees as a top priority, to link the company's long-term goals with employee rewards, to be competitive, to focus employees on long-term goals, to reward, to share success, and so on. In principle, they are similar to short-term incentives in many ways. The goals are just more long-term. They differ slightly from short-term incentives. Who are long-term systems applied to? Not just for the chief executive officer, but usually the chief executive officer and their direct subordinates, or all vice presidents, directors, and other subordinates of the chief executive officer, including the chief executive officer themselves. Some companies extend it to key employees, and only 4% of companies extend long-term incentives to all employees. And when it's extended to all employees, it's most often an options plan called an Employee Stock Ownership Plan, ESOP, stock. When employees are given options, they can then make money when the company is sold, goes public, or simply increases in value. The size of long-term incentive as a percentage of salary for the chief executive officer is about 100%, for subordinates 70%, for vice presidents 40%. This is on average. Some companies are more generous, some are less generous. Percentage of shares for long-term incentive. That is, what percentage of the company's shares are allocated to long-term incentive. Most spend between 5 to 10%. Although there are companies that allocate even more than 25%. For example, 30% of all shares are spent on an options plan or other types. Some directly issue shares instead of money. That's how it's spent. What else besides bonuses is used for rewards? Promotions, flexible work opportunities, additional base compensation, company culture and community, developmental tasks, retirement plans, additional benefits, education reimbursement, and so on. Phew, that's the kind of research we're looking at. I hope you found it interesting. I understand that this topic is quite complex for many, maybe boring, but it's very important. It's necessary to understand this because, as I've said, companies spend substantial money in this area. The book I can recommend for a more detailed study of today's topic is a book that's coming out in a new edition, the second edition, Handbook of Total Rewards, supported by the World at Work Association. Now here's the homework for those who are taking the course. Describe your current bonus system and everything you have. You can call it different names, indicate the pros and cons, and what new systems you think would be beneficial for your company. It's hard to believe about the 51% LTI. This meant that 51% of the companies participating in this survey have LTIs. Does it seem like more or less to you? Look, such studies for the CS also exist. I didn't set out to find them, but they'll likely be there. Hey, either salary market survey providers. This is also information you need to purchase. But if we're talking about America, stock options are very common there. And long-term systems are quite common. I don't know why it's hard to believe. After all, it's very widespread there. With Wall Street nearby, they're obsessed with stocks and options there. Yes, for America, yes, we probably have less of this. But look, we're increasingly competing with international companies, and there are very few companies that would be protected from international competition. The niche is very small, or it's still in a market that hasn't been entered yet. International companies. So I wouldn't say they have this and we don't, so let's not do it. Speaking for myself, I'm a proponent of LTI and in particular option plans. I mean, I wouldn't give out shares. Shares definitely shouldn't be given out just like that. And even replacing cash payments with shares isn't great either. But options are really cool. Okay, that concludes the first session. The second session will cover laying the groundwork and analyzing employee roles, so we'll be prepared to choose the right bonus systems later on. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. If there are no questions, please share what you found most valuable, interesting, and useful from this session. Please share your thoughts. What are your key takeaways? And of course, I invite everyone interested to join the course to learn how to develop a bonus system, not just haphazardly, but according to the best global standards. We'll cover what's been tested, what works, and what's inevitably coming for all of us in the future. That's how it is. I realize that my project bonus system is very sound, considering what we discussed today. By the way, that's also correct and useful to confirm and understand certain aspects. Good. All right, friends, the presentation was great. This topic was really missing from the Total Rewards course. In Total Rewards, there is only one session on this, and it is complex with a lot of information. Well, maybe we could add something to it, or at least figure out where to add this presentation. We will see. Thank you for the feedback. This topic is new to me, so everything is valuable. Yes, fantastic. Have a good evening, everyone. Until next time. It was great to see you all. Bye-bye.